When my husband died, my daughter didn't see a grieving mother. She saw a walking ATM with an expiration date. She thought my silence was dementia. She thought my trembling hands were weakness. She didn't realize I was trembling with rage. By the time she signed the papers to lock me away, she had no idea she was actually signing over her entire life to me. Hello, ladies. Pull up your chairs and settle in because I have a story today that is going to make your blood boil and then freeze right over. We all worry about getting older, don't we? We worry about our hips and our eyes and our memories. But the one thing we never think we have to worry about is our own children turning our age against us like a weapon. We change their diapers and we pay for their colleges and we help them buy their first homes. We assume that when we get frail, they will be our strength. But honey, sometimes the people we raised are just waiting for us to fall so they can pick our pockets on the way down. This is the story of Evelyn, a woman who spent 40 years catching criminals with a calculator, only to find the biggest thief was sleeping in her old guest room. Evelyn stood in the center of her living room and tried to ignore the suffocating scent of lilies. Robert had been in the ground for 3 hours, and the house was still full of people, eating cold cuts and drinking her wine. She felt thin. That was the only word for it. She felt like a piece of paper that could blow away if someone opened a window. Her husband of 45 years was gone. The silence he left behind was louder than the chatter of the 50 guests squeezing into her foyer. She looked across the room at her daughter Brenda. Brenda was 38 years old and currently performing the role of the grieving daughter for an audience of 3 neighbors and a smartphone camera. Brenda had her hand over her heart. She was wearing a black dress that cost more than Evelyn's first car. She was weeping beautifully. Not the ugly, snotty crying that Evelyn had been doing in the bathroom for 3 days. No, this was a single photogenic tear, sliding down a cheek full of Botox. Brenda caught Evelyn's eye, and the grief vanished from her face for a split second. It was replaced by a look of sharp assessment. It was the way a real estate agent looks at a house with good bones but bad wallpaper. Then the mask slipped back on. Brenda rushed over and grabbed Evelyn's elbow with a grip that was a little too tight. "Mom, you look exhausted," Brenda said loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "You are shaking. Look at her hands, everyone. She is shaking like a leaf. You need to sit down before you fall down." "I am fine, Brenda," Evelyn said. Her voice was raspy but steady. "I am just saying goodbye to Mrs. Higgins." "You are not fine, Mom. You are confused." Brenda steered her toward the velvet armchair, like she was a toddler who had wandered into traffic. "You have been mixing up names all afternoon. You just called Mrs. Higgins by Aunt Sarah's name." Evelyn frowned. She had not done that. She was absolutely certain she had not done that. She had called the woman Martha because her name was Martha Higgins, but 3 people were looking at her with pity now, so she didn't argue. She sank into the chair. Maybe she was more tired than she thought. Grief did strange things to the brain. She had read that somewhere. The wake eventually ended. The neighbors took their casserole dishes and left. The silence came back heavy and thick. Evelyn sat in the chair and watched Brenda and her husband Todd raid the leftover buffet. Todd was a soft man who always looked sweaty even in air conditioning. He was shoving a deviled egg into his mouth while scrolling on his tablet. "So what happens now?" Todd asked with his mouth full. "We handle it," Brenda said. She was popping the cork on a second bottle of wine. She poured a glass and walked over to Evelyn. "Here, Mom. Drink this, it will help you sleep." "I do not want wine, Brenda. I want a cup of tea, just drink it." Brenda's voice had an edge to it, a sharpness that usually didn't come out until the 3rd glass. "You are being difficult. You have been difficult all day." Evelyn took the glass just to stop the conversation. She looked around the room. Something was wrong. The silver picture frame that usually sat on the mantel was gone. It was a photo of her and Robert in Hawaii. It had been there since 1998. Where is the picture? Evelyn asked. What picture? Brenda asked. She was kicking off her heels and settling onto the sofa. The Hawaii picture. It was right there on the mantel this morning. Mom, Brenda sighed. A long dramatic exhale that rattled her chest. We talked about this. You put that picture in the box for the attic yesterday. You said looking at it made you too sad. Evelyn gripped the wine glass. I did no such thing. I would never put Robert in the attic. Not today. Brenda exchanged a look with Todd. It was a quick glance, a conspiratorial flicker of eyes. Todd stopped chewing. Evelyn, honey, Todd said gently. His voice sounded like he was talking to a frightened animal. We watched you do it. You were crying. You said you wanted to clear the surfaces. Do you not remember that? Evelyn felt a cold prickle of fear at the base of her neck. She remembered polishing the frame this morning. She remembered kissing the glass right over Robert's face. She did not remember a box. She did not remember the attic. Was she losing time? Was the stress causing her mind to fracture? Maybe I am tired, Evelyn whispered. You are worse than tired, Mom, Brenda said. She took a sip of wine and looked at Evelyn over the rim of the glass. You are slipping. I have noticed it for months, but I didn't want to say anything while Dad was sick. But now, well, we need to be realistic. The next morning, Evelyn woke up determined to regain her footing. She was a woman who had balance books for Fortune 500 companies. She had tracked embezzlers through shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. She was not a senile old woman who put pictures in attics. She went to the kitchen to make coffee. The stove was on. The gas burner was hissing low. A blue ring of fire was dancing in the morning light. The kettle was sitting on the counter cold. Evelyn stared at the flame. She had not made tea last night. She had gone straight to bed. She reached out and turned the knob to off. Her hand was trembling. Mom! Brenda screamed from the doorway. Evelyn jumped. Brenda was standing there in a silk robe, clutching her chest. Oh my God, Mom! You are trying to kill us! Brenda rushed into the room. I smelled gas all the way upstairs. Did you leave this on all night? I didn't touch the stove, Evelyn said. I just walked in here. Do not lie to me, Brenda snapped. She looked furious. I came down here at 2 in the morning because I heard noise. You were standing right here staring at the wall. I asked you what you were doing and you looked right through me. I was asleep at 2 in the morning, Evelyn said, but her voice lacked conviction. Todd walked in, rubbing his eyes. What is going on? Your mother left the gas on, Brenda said. She is wandering at night, Todd. She is going to burn the house down with us inside it. Todd looked at Evelyn with that same pitying expression from the day before. Margaret, we have to be safe. Maybe we should take the knobs off the stove, just for now. Evelyn looked from her daughter to her son-in-law. They were a united front, the concerned children dealing with the problematic mother. And for a second Evelyn believed them. She felt a wave of shame so hot it made her dizzy. Maybe she was losing it. Maybe the grief had snapped a wire in her head. I am sorry, Evelyn whispered. I didn't mean to. Brenda's face softened. It was a terrifying transformation. She walked over and hugged Evelyn. The hug felt like a trap. It is okay, Mom, Brenda cooed. We are here now. We are going to take care of everything. You don't have to worry about the house or the bills or any of that. We will handle the heavy lifting. You just rest. Evelyn went out to the garden an hour later. She needed air. She needed to get away from Brenda's suffocating concern. She sat on the stone bench Robert had built for her and looked at her rose bushes. She took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and tried to retrace her steps from the night before. She had brushed her teeth. She had put on her blue nightgown. She had locked her bedroom door. She froze. She had locked her bedroom door. She always locked it. Robert used to tease her about it. It was a habit from living in the city in her 20s. If she had locked her door, how could she have wandered downstairs at 2 in the morning? She would have had to unlock it. And she remembered waking up this morning and turning the little brass thumb turned to open it. Evelyn opened her eyes. The shame evaporated. It was replaced by something cold and hard, something that felt like the old Evelyn, the forensic accountant Evelyn. She stood up and walked to the side of the house where the trash cans were kept. Brenda had taken the kitchen trash out this morning. Evelyn lifted the lid. She saw the empty wine bottles, she saw the paper plates, and right on top, sitting in a nest of coffee grounds, was her silver picture frame. It wasn't in the attic. It was in the garbage. Evelyn reached in and pulled it out. She wiped the coffee grounds off Robert's smiling face. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. She looked back at the house. She saw Brenda in the kitchen window talking on her phone. Brenda was gesturing wildly. She looked excited. She didn't look like a daughter worried about her mother's dementia. She looked like a woman who had just won a prize. Evelyn slipped the picture frame into the deep pocket of her cardigan. She understood now. The missing items, the gas stove, the gaslighting. Brenda wasn't trying to help her. Brenda was building a case. She was building a dossier of incompetence. Why? The answer was simple. It was always simple. It was the same reason the CEO cooked the books. It was the same reason the bank manager created fake accounts. Money. Evelyn patted the frame in her pocket. Robert always said Evelyn was too suspicious. He said she looked for crimes where there were only mistakes. But Robert was dead, and Evelyn was the one left in the shark tank. She walked back toward the house. She made her posture slump. She let a confused look wash over her face. She made her hand tremble as she reached for the door handle. If Brenda wanted a senile old woman, she was going to get one. Evelyn was going to give the performance of a lifetime, because she needed to know exactly how far her daughter was willing to go. And she needed to know who owned the loan on Brenda's soul. Now listen to me close. There is a special kind of predator in this world. It is not the lion and it is not the bear. It is the person who uses your love as camouflage. They know you will not shoot because they look like your baby. Brenda looked like my baby. She had the same nose I wiped for 6 years. She had the same eyes that looked up at me during bedtime stories. But the thing looking at me from the kitchen island was not my baby. It was a shark in a silk blouse. I walked back inside. I made sure my feet shuffled on the hardwood. I let my shoulders drop forward like the weight of the world was snapping my spine. I kept my hand in my pocket, clutching that silver picture frame like it was a grenade. Brenda hung up the phone the second she saw me. She slid it face down on the marble counter. A little too fast, a little too guilty. Who was that, dear? I asked. I made my voice thin and reedy. Just the doctor, Mom. Brenda lied smoothly. I was telling him about your episodes, about the stove. He is very worried. He thinks it might be rapid onset dementia, brought on by the trauma of Dad's death. I blinked at her. Rapid onset dementia. It sounded like something she read on a blog. He thinks you need rest, Mom. Serious rest. He said you shouldn't be worrying about bills or the estate or legal papers right now. Your brain is too fragile. Todd walked in from the garage. He smelled like cigarette smoke and fear. He avoided looking me in the eye, Mom, Brenda said. She walked over and took my hand. Her palms were cold. We think it is best if you let us handle the administrative side of things, just for a little while, just until you are feeling like yourself again. She reached into her designer tote bag and pulled out a thick stack of papers. They were stapled and flagged with little yellow sticky notes. What is this? I asked. It is just a temporary power of attorney, Todd said. He was cracking his knuckles, one by one. Pop, pop, pop. It just lets us talk to the bank and the insurance company for you. So you don't have to sit on hold for hours. You know how you hate phone trees, Margaret. I looked at the papers. I saw the words durable power of attorney printed at the top. There was nothing temporary about it. This document would give them the power to sell my house, access my accounts, and liquidate my stocks. It was the keys to the kingdom. I hesitated. I had to make it look real. I don't know, Brenda. Your father always handled the papers. He told me never to sign anything without reading it. Mom, Brenda's voice got tight. Dad is gone, and you almost blew up the house this morning. Do you want to end up on the street because you forgot to pay the mortgage? Do you want to lose everything because you are too stubborn to let us help you? She was squeezing my hand now hard. Her nails were digging into my skin. Please, Mom, do it for us so we don't have to worry about you. I looked down at the table. Brenda's phone buzzed against the marble. Since it was face down, I couldn't see the screen, but the vibration made it slide just a fraction of an inch. I reached for the pen, my hand was shaking. This time I didn't have to fake it. The rage was vibrating through my bones. I was 43 years of marriage and hard work. I was the one who saved every bonus Robert ever made. I was the one who invested in tech stocks in the 90s when everyone else was buying vacation homes. And here was my daughter trying to steal it with a tear in her eye and a lie on her lips. I lowered the pen to the paper. Okay, I whispered, if you think it is best. Thank God. Brenda breathed out. I signed my name, Margaret Evelyn Sullivan. I made the signature shaky. I let the pen trail off at the end, like I was too weak to finish the N. Brenda snatched the papers away before the ink was even dry. She checked the signature like a bank teller. A smile broke across her face. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf that just realized the gate to the sheep pen was unlocked. Why don't you go upstairs and lay down, Mom? Brenda said. She was already organizing the papers into a folder. Todd and I have some calls to make. I nodded. I shuffled out of the room. I climbed the stairs one slow step at a time. I heard them whispering below me. I heard the pop of a champagne cork. They were celebrating. They were toasting to their victory. I went into my bedroom and locked the door. I walked over to the window and looked out at the driveway. I saw Todd's car. It was a leased BMW. I knew for a fact he was 3 months behind on the payments because I still opened my own mail, even if I pretended I didn't understand it. I pulled the silver picture frame out of my pocket. I set it on my nightstand right where it belonged. They thought they had stripped me of my power. They thought the signature on that page made me helpless, but they made the classic mistake. They confused authority with power. They had the authority to move my money, but they didn't know where all the money was. I went to my closet and pushed aside the long row of black funeral dresses. I knelt down and pulled up the loose floorboard in the back corner. It was a hiding spot Robert and I had built 30 years ago. Inside was a small fireproof box. I opened it. Inside were 3 things: my passport, a burner phone with a prepaid SIM card, and a ledger. A thick green ledger that listed every single asset Robert and I really owned: the offshore accounts, the blind trusts, the real estate held in shell companies that didn't have the name Sullivan anywhere on them. Brenda had the keys to the checking account. She had the keys to the house. She thought she had the keys to the fortune. But I was about to teach her a lesson in forensic accounting. You cannot steal what you cannot find, and you cannot spend what is already being watched. I took the burner phone and turned it on. I dialed a number I hadn't used in 5 years. It rang twice. Hello, a gruff voice answered. Frank, I said. My voice was strong, clear, cold. It is Evelyn. Evelyn, the voice sounded surprised. I heard about Robert. I am sorry, save it, Frank. I need a favor. I need you to run a full financial background check on my daughter and her husband. I want to know every debt, every credit card, every loan shark. I want to know who owns them. There was a pause. You think they are in trouble, Evelyn. I think they are desperate, I said. And I think they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I hung up the phone. Downstairs, I could hear Brenda laughing. It was a loud, shrill sound. Enjoy it, baby girl. I whispered to the empty room. Enjoy the champagne. Because the hangover is coming, and it is going to be a killer. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. I knew the next move. Now that they had the power of attorney, they needed to get rid of the witness. They couldn't have me wandering around asking questions. They needed me somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, somewhere cheap. They were going to exile me, and I was going to let them, because the only way to catch a rat is to let it think it has found the cheese. Honey, let me tell you something about greed. Greed is the fastest thing on earth. It is faster than a cheetah, and it is faster than a rumor in a church choir. You think grief takes time. You think mourning takes a year. Well, robbery takes a weekend. If you give a thief a key, they will clear out the vault before you even finish your morning coffee. I thought I had weeks to prepare for the next step. I thought Brenda would wait until the grass grew over Robert's grave before she made her move. I was wrong. She moved with the speed of a woman who had a loan shark breathing down her neck. It was Saturday morning. Exactly 48 hours after I signed that power of attorney, I was sitting in the kitchen, staring at my toast when Brenda walked in. She was wearing leggings and a t-shirt that said "Positive Vibes Only." She was holding a roll of packing tape. "Good morning, Mom," she said. She was talking fast. Too fast. "Todd and I have found the perfect place for you. It is called Golden Ames. It is a luxury senior community just across town." I put down my toast. Luxury senior community. That sounded expensive. That sounded nice. When would I go? I asked. Today, Brenda said. She ripped a piece of tape off the roll. It made a loud tearing sound that made me jump. "They have a room opening up this afternoon, and we need to grab it before someone else does. It is very exclusive, Mom. There is a waiting list a mile long." I looked around my kitchen. My copper pots were hanging on the rack. My herb garden was growing in the window. "But I haven't packed," I said. "Don't worry about that." Brenda waved her hand. "You don't need much. Just clothes and toiletries. The rooms are fully furnished. We will handle the rest of the house. We are going to declutter. Simplify your assets." Simplify my assets. That was a fancy way of saying sell my things. I went upstairs and packed a single suitcase. Brenda stood in the doorway and supervised. When I reached for my jewelry box, she stopped me. "Oh, Mom, you don't want to take that," she said. "Things go missing in those places. You know how it is with the cleaning staff. Let me keep it in my safe for you. I will keep it safe." I handed her the box. It contained my diamond engagement ring and the pearl necklace Robert gave me for our 30th anniversary. "Thank you, dear," I said. I made my voice tremble. "You are such a good girl." She took the box. She didn't put it in a safe. She put it in her purse. Todd loaded my suitcase into the trunk. He was whistling. It was a nervous whistle. He drove us across town, away from the leafy streets of our neighborhood, and toward the industrial district. We passed the mall, we passed the car dealerships. We turned onto a street that had a lot of cracked pavement and chain-link fences. "Is this the right way?" I asked. "Shortcut," Todd said. We pulled up to a brick building that looked like a converted high school from the 1950s. The sign out front said, "Golden Ames Senior Living," in peeling gold letters. There was no garden. There was a parking lot with 3 ambulances parked in the back. This is it, Brenda chirped. Isn't it charming? We walked into the lobby. It smelled like bleach and boiled cabbage. It smelled like a place where people went to be forgotten. The carpet was sticky. The receptionist was behind a glass partition like a bank teller or a prison guard. Brenda did all the talking. She signed papers, she handed over a check. I noticed it was a check from my account. She was using my money to pay for my own prison. This way, Mrs. Sullivan, a nurse said. She was wearing scrubs that were 2 sizes too small. She didn't look at me, she looked at the clipboard. My room was number 204. It was down a long hallway that flickered with fluorescent lights. The room was small. It had a twin bed with a plastic mattress cover that crinkled when you touched it. There was a laminate dresser and a window that looked out at a brick wall. It is cozy, Brenda said. She walked to the window and didn't look out. She just checked her reflection in the glass. You will love it here, Mom. They have bingo on Tuesdays. I sat on the edge of the bed. The plastic crinkled. When will you visit? I asked. Oh, all the time, Brenda said. She was backing toward the door. But we are going to give you a few days to settle in first. You know, get acclaimed. We don't want to overwhelm you. She kissed my forehead. Her lips were dry. Bye, Mom, be good. She walked out. Todd followed her. He gave me a little wave and then hurried after his wife like a dog that was afraid of getting left behind. I listened to their footsteps fade down the hallway. I heard the elevator ding. I heard the doors slide shut. I was alone. I stood up and walked to the door. I closed it. I locked it. I went to the window. If I craned my neck, I could see the parking lot. I saw the BMW pull out. I saw Brenda laughing. She was holding her phone up. She was probably taking a selfie. Just dropped Mom off at her new home. Hashtag blessed, hashtag caregiver. I turned away from the window. I stripped the bed sheets off the mattress. I couldn't sleep on sheets that smelled like industrial detergent. I pulled my own quilt out of my suitcase. Then I reached into the lining of my coat. I pulled out the burner phone. I sat in the single plastic chair in the corner of the room. The walls were thin. I could hear the television in the next room. Someone was watching a game show. I could hear coughing from the room across the hall. It was depressing. It was humiliating. It was perfect. I was exactly where I needed to be. I was the discarded mother, the tragic widow. No one would look for a forensic accountant in room 204 of Golden Ames. I dialed Frank's number again. I am in, I said. Good. Frank's voice rumbled in my ear. Because I found something, Evelyn, and it is ugly. How ugly? Your son-in-law isn't just broke, Frank said. He is underwater. He owes money to a private lender in Jersey, a guy named Nicky the Vice Santoro. I closed my eyes. Organized crime. My idiot son-in-law had borrowed money from the mob to buy cryptocurrency. How much? I asked. 300,000, Frank said, and the interest is compounding weekly. That is why they needed your money so fast, Evelyn. They aren't just greedy, they are terrified. It made sense, the rush, the desperation, the positive vibes t-shirt, covering up the panic attack. What about Brenda? I asked. She has 3 mortgages on her own house, Frank said, and she just listed your house on Zillow. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. My house, the house Robert built, the house where I raised Brenda. Already, I whispered 20 minutes ago, Frank said, listed as priced for quick sale. Cash buyers only. I looked around the small gray room. I looked at the peeling paint. I looked at the plastic mattress. Let them list it, I said. My voice was cold as the grave. Let them show it. Let them get a buyer. Evelyn, are you sure? Frank asked. If they sell that house, the money is gone. They won't sell it, Frank, I said, because you are going to call your friend at the county clerk's office. We are going to place a lien on the property. A shadow lean. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile, and Frank, I added, I want you to buy the debt on Brenda's house. What? You heard me. Use the shell company in Nevada. Buy the notes on Brenda's 3 mortgages. I want to be the bank, Frank. I want to own the roof over her head. I hung up the phone. I sat back in the plastic chair and listened to the bingo game starting downstairs. Before 19, they had put me in a cage, but they forgot to check if the lock worked. You know, the hardest part about prison isn't the bars. It is the boredom. And let me tell you something, ladies. A cheap nursing home is just minimum security prison with better bingo prizes. I spent 3 days in Golden Ames, 3 days of eating gray meatloaf and watching The Price is Right in a common room that smelled like old soup. I learned the rhythm of the place. I learned that Mrs. Gable in room 206 screamed at 3 a.m. because she thought the nurses were stealing her cats. I learned that the night shift orderly named Kevin would let you sneak an extra pudding cup if you smiled at him. I played my part. I wore my slippers. I shuffled. I asked the same question 3 times in a row, just to watch the nurses roll their eyes. Has my daughter called? I would ask. Not today, Mrs. Sullivan. They would say with that fake plastic cheerfulness, maybe tomorrow. But at night when the lights went out and the hallway grew quiet, I went to work. I sat in my bathroom with the door locked and the shower running to mask the sound of my voice. I had my burner phone and my notebook. I was tracking the sale of my house on Zillow. Brenda moved fast. I had to give her credit. She had a staging company in there on Tuesday. By Wednesday, she had photos up. My beautiful oak dining table was covered in a trendy white runner. My oil paintings were taken down and replaced with generic prints of geometric shapes. She was erasing me. She was scrubbing 40 years of history out of that house so she could sell it to the highest bidder. On Thursday morning, a notification popped up on my screen. 847 Oakwood Drive. Status pending. She had a buyer. An all-cash offer. $1.2 million. I stared at the screen. That was my life savings. That was the money Robert and I had set aside for travel and charity and grandkids' college funds. And Brenda was about to cash it out to pay off a mobster and buy herself a new lease on a life she couldn't afford. My phone buzzed. It was Frank. "We are ready, Evelyn," he said. "The lien is filed. It is buried deep in the county records, under a shell company called Nemesis Holdings. The title search won't find it until the closing day. They will be sitting at the table with the pens in their hands and boom, the title will come back frozen." "Good," I said. "And the other matter done?" Frank said. "We bought the notes on Brenda's house this morning. The bank was happy to unload them since she is 3 months behind. You are officially the mortgage holder on 122 Skyline Drive. You own her debt, Evelyn." I felt a cold, grim satisfaction. "Send the notice, Frank, but time it carefully. I want her to get the eviction notice exactly 1 hour after the sale of my house falls through. I want to hit her with the 1-2 punch." "You are a scary woman, Evelyn." Frank chuckled. "I am a mother, Frank," I said. "We are only scary when we have to be." I hung up and hid the phone back in the lining of my suitcase. I walked out into the hallway. I needed to stretch my legs. I bumped into the director of the facility, a woman named Miss Trunch. She was a tall woman with hair sprayed into a helmet and a clipboard that she held like a shield. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said, looking down her nose at me, "your daughter called." My heart skipped a beat. Had she figured it out? "Oh," I said, making my voice quaver. "Is she coming to get me?" Miss Trunch smirked. "No, dear. She called to let us know that she will be dropping off a check for your next 6 months of care tomorrow. She said she came into some unexpected funds." Unexpected funds. She was already spending the money from the house sale. She was counting her chickens before they hatched, plucked, and fried. That is nice, I whispered. She is such a good girl. Yes, well. Miss Trunch checked her watch. Dinner is in 10 minutes. Try not to spill on yourself tonight, Mrs. Sullivan. It creates extra laundry. I watched her walk away. I looked at the peeling wallpaper. I looked at Mrs. Gable crying in the doorway of room 206. Don't worry, Mrs. Gable, I said softly as I passed her. The cats are fine, and the dogs are coming to hunt. I went back to my room and sat on the crinkly plastic mattress. I looked at the brick wall outside my window. Tomorrow was Friday, closing day. Tomorrow Brenda would walk into a title company office, expecting to walk out a millionaire. Instead, she was going to walk into a wall. And when she stumbled back dazed and confused, she was going to find out that her own house of cards had just collapsed. I lay down and pulled the thin, scratchy blanket up to my chin. For the first time since Robert died, I slept like a baby, because tomorrow the senile old lady in room 204 was going to war. Now, ladies, do you know what the most dangerous sound in the world is? It isn't a gunshot and it isn't thunder. It is the sound of a champagne cork popping too early. There is nothing the universe hates more than arrogance. And my daughter Brenda was about to give the universe a reason to strike her down with a bolt of lightning made of pure paperwork. It was Friday morning, closing day, the day Brenda thought she would trade her mother's legacy for a wire transfer of $1.2 million. I sat in the common room of Golden Ames. The television was blaring a soap opera, where a woman with an eye patch was slapping a doctor. I had my headphones in. To the nurses I looked like a sweet old lady listening to an audiobook. Maybe the Bible. Maybe a romance novel. But I wasn't listening to a book. I was listening to a murder. A financial murder. I had my burner phone connected to a call. On the other end was Frank. Frank was sitting in the conference room of Downtown Title and Escrow. He wasn't Frank the private investigator today. He was Mr. Francis Stone representing the anonymous buyer. See, that was the trick. We hadn't just blocked the sale with a lien. We had made the offer too. I was buying my own house back from my daughter, using a shell company, and she didn't even know it. I wanted to be the one sitting across the table when her world fell apart. Or at least I wanted my proxy to be there. I adjusted the volume. The audio was crisp. I could hear the rustle of papers. I could hear the nervous tapping of Todd's foot against the table leg. Can we get started? Brenda's voice cut through the static. She sounded tight, anxious. We have a lunch reservation at Le Bernardin at 1. Of course, Mrs. Hayes, the escrow officer said. Her name was Linda. I knew Linda. She had handled the closing on my first house 30 years ago. She was a stickler for details. We are just waiting for the final title clearance to come through from the county clerk. Should be any minute. I thought the title was clear, Todd said. His voice cracked. You said it was clear on Tuesday. It was, Linda said, but we always do a final run on the morning of closing. Just standard procedure. Would you like some water while we wait? No, Brenda snapped. I want to sign. My mother is in a facility. Her care is very expensive. We need these funds released today to ensure her well-being. I let out a dry laugh that made Mrs. Gable look up from her knitting. Her well-being. Brenda was probably already spending that money in her head, on a new Mercedes and a trip to Cabo. I listened as Frank spoke up. His voice was deep and smooth like gravel in a blender. We are in no rush, Mrs. Hayes. My client is very eager to acquire the property. It is a beautiful estate, a lot of history. Yes, well, it was too much for my mother, Brenda said. She let it go to seed. We had to do so much work just to get it market ready. Liar. You put a runner on a table and threw away my photos. That is not work. That is vandalism. And your mother, Frank asked, she is aware of the sale. She is happy with the price. My mother isn't aware of much these days, Brenda sighed. Dementia. It is tragic, really. She thinks she is still living in the 90s. She doesn't understand assets or liquidity. Honestly, Mr. Stone, it is a mercy we are taking this burden off her hands. I gripped the arm of my chair. The plastic dug into my skin. A mercy. She called stealing my life a mercy. I see, Frank said. Well, let's hope the title clears quickly then. There was a silence on the line. I closed my eyes and visualized the room, the mahogany table, the smell of fresh coffee and expensive perfume, masking the scent of fear. Brenda was vibrating. I could feel it through the phone. She needed this money. The loan shark, the vice, was probably charging her daily interest. Then I heard it, the beep of a computer. Then the sound of a printer starting up. Ah, here we go, Linda said, the final report. I heard the shuffle of paper. I held my breath. This was it. The moment the trap snapped shut. Okay, let's see, Linda mumbled. Clear tax assessment is paid. Wait. The room went silent. What? Brenda asked. What is it? That is odd, Linda said. There is a cloud on the title, a new filing. It was recorded yesterday afternoon. What kind of filing? Todd squeaked. It is a mechanic's lien, Linda said slowly, and a lease pendens, a notice of pending litigation. That is impossible. Brenda's voice rose an octave. We paid the contractors, we paid the stagers, who filed it. It was filed by an entity called Nemesis Holdings. Linda read. They are claiming an unpaid promissory note, secured by the property dating back 15 years. The principal amount is $400,000. With interest. Oh my, this is a mistake, Brenda shouted. I have never heard of Nemesis Holdings. My parents didn't have debts. My father was meticulous. According to this filing, Linda continued, her voice cool and professional, the debt was personally guaranteed by Margaret Evelyn Sullivan. Since you are acting as her power of attorney, Mrs. Hayes, you are responsible for clearing this lien before the sale can proceed. We cannot issue title insurance with a cloud this size. How much is the total claim? Frank asked. I could hear the smile in his voice. $680,000, Linda said. Well, Frank said, that changes the math considerably. My client offered $1.2 million for a clean title. We are not interested in inheriting a lawsuit. Wait, Brenda screamed. We can fix this. We can pay it out of the proceeds. Just deduct it from the sale price. I am afraid it is not that simple, Linda said. A lease pendens means the property is subject to a lawsuit. We can't close. The sale is suspended until this is resolved in court. Suspended. Todd sounded like he was going to vomit. For how long? Months, Linda said. Maybe a year, depending on how fast the courts move. I heard the sound of a chair scraping back violently. Brenda was standing up. This is fraud, she shrieked. This is some kind of sick joke. My mother doesn't owe anyone $600,000. Actually, Mrs. Hayes, Frank said calmly, it looks like the deal is dead. My client is withdrawing the offer. We are walking away. You can't, Brenda yelled. We have a contract. Subject to clear title, Frank corrected. Read paragraph 4. No title, no deal. Good day. I heard footsteps. Frank was walking out. Come back. Brenda was screaming now. We can fix it. Todd, do something. What do you want me to do, Brenda? Todd yelled back. It's over. We don't have the money. I pulled the headphones out of my ears. I didn't need to hear the rest. I knew what a panic attack sounded like. I had heard enough of them in my line of work. I looked at the nurse walking by with a med cart. Excuse me, dear, I said sweetly. Could I have an extra juice box? I feel like celebrating. Celebrating what, Mrs. Sullivan? The nurse asked, handing me a grape juice. Oh, just a feeling, I said, poking the straw into the box. I have a feeling justice is being served for lunch. But I wasn't done. The lien on my house was just the shield. I still had to use the sword. Brenda was reeling from the loss of the sale. She was dizzy. She was confused. And that is exactly when you hit them with the knockout blow. I checked the time, 11:15 a.m. Frank's shell company had purchased the debt on Brenda's house 2 days ago. I had instructed the lawyer to send the acceleration notice via email, exactly 15 minutes after the closing was scheduled to end. Brenda was about to check her phone hoping for a miracle. Instead, she was going to find an eviction. You know they say bad news travels fast, but a foreclosure notice travels at the speed of light. I sat in my room at Golden Ames and watched the clock on the wall. It was a cheap plastic clock that ticked so loud, it sounded like a bomb counting down. Tick, tock, tick, tock. At 11:30 exactly, I sent a text to Frank. Execute Phase 2. Phase 2 was the acceleration notice. You see, when you buy a bad mortgage, you have the right to call in the full amount if the borrower is in default. Brenda hadn't paid her mortgage in 4 months. She was banking on selling my house to cover her tracks. But since the sale just imploded, she was now sitting on a financial landmine. I didn't have to wait long. At 12:15, the door to my room flew open. It hit the wall with a bang. That made Mrs. Gable's cat scream across the hall. Brenda stood there. She looked like a train wreck. Her hair was coming loose from her perfect bun. Her mascara was smudged under one eye. She was breathing hard like she had run, all the way from the title company. "Mom," she gasped. I looked up from my crossword puzzle. I put on my best confused old lady face. I let my mouth hang open just a little bit. "Brenda dear," I said. "Is it Tuesday? Did you bring the cookies?" She didn't answer. She stomped into the room and slammed the door. She marched over to me and grabbed my shoulders. "Mom, listen to me. Who is Nemesis Holdings?" I blinked. Nemesis. That sounds like a Greek goddess, dear. The goddess of revenge, I think. Did we learn about her in school? Stop it. Brenda shook me. Her fingers dug into my cardigan. I am not playing games. A company called Nemesis Holdings just blocked the sale of the house. They say you owe them $600,000. Did you borrow money, Mom? Did you sign something with a loan shark? Did Dad have a secret life? I pulled away from her. "You are hurting me, Brenda. I am trying to save us," she screamed. Her voice cracked. "We needed that sale, Mom. We needed it today." "Why, dear?" I asked innocently. "I thought you had plenty of money. You have that big house, and Todd has his crypto investments." Brenda's face went white. She let go of me and paced the small room. She looked like a trapped animal. She was chewing on her thumbnail, a nasty habit she had picked up when she was 6 years old, and lying about who ate the cookies. "We have a cash flow problem," she muttered. "Just a temporary liquidity issue. But this lien destroys everything. If we can't sell the house, we can't." She stopped. She realized she was saying too much. "Can't what, Brenda?" "Pay the man named the Vice." I didn't say it out loud, I just looked at her. Just then her phone chimed. It was a loud, aggressive ping. Brenda pulled it out of her purse. She looked at the screen. I watched the color drain out of her face. It was like watching water drain out of a bathtub. She went from pale to gray in 3 seconds. "No," she whispered. "What is it, dear?" I asked. "Is it good news?" She dropped the phone. It hit the linoleum floor with a clatter. She put her hands over her mouth. "They called the note," she choked out. "Who did?" "The bank." She stared at the wall. "Not the bank. Some investment group. They bought our mortgage, Mom. They bought the note on my house. And they just accelerated the debt. They want the full balance. $1.4 million immediately. Or they start foreclosure proceedings in 48 hours. "Oh my," I said. I clapped my hands over my mouth to hide the smile that was fighting to get out. "That sounds serious, Brenda. Do you have $1.4 million?" She looked at me with wild eyes. She looked crazy. "No, Mom, I don't. I was supposed to get it from your house." She sank onto the bed. The plastic mattress cover crunched under her weight. She put her head in her hands. "I am homeless," she whispered. "I am going to lose my house. I am going to lose the cars. Todd is going to..." She stopped again. Todd is going to get his legs broken by a man named Nicky. That was the rest of the sentence. I leaned forward. I touched her knee. Well, dear, I said softly, at least you have a room reserved here. Maybe they have a double. You and Todd could push the twin beds together. The bingo is very fun on Tuesdays. She looked up at me. For a second I saw real hate in her eyes. Not annoyance, not dismissal, hate. She looked at me and she wondered. She wondered if the old lady with the crossword puzzle knew exactly what she was saying. This is your fault, she hissed, if you hadn't been so secretive, if you hadn't hidden debts. This Nemesis company is your mess, is it? I asked. Or is it just bad luck? She stood up. She grabbed her purse and her phone. I am going to fix this, she said. I am going to find this Nemesis Holdings and I am going to sue them. I am going to prove this debt is fake. Good luck, dear, I said. But lawyers cost money, Brenda. And it looks to me like you don't even have enough for the parking meter. She stormed out. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't say I love you. She just ran. I waited until I heard the elevator doors close. Then I picked up my crossword puzzle. I filled in 4 down, 6 letters, Goddess of Retribution, MSIs. It fit perfectly. I picked up my burner phone and texted Frank. She took the bait. She is running scared. Proceed to chapter 4. Because I wasn't done. Taking her house was just the beginning. I didn't just want to take her things. I wanted to take her pride. I wanted her to admit what she had done. I wanted a confession. And to get that, I had to squeeze her until the truth came out like juice from a rotten orange. She thought she was fighting a company. She didn't know she was fighting her mother. And that was going to be the hardest lesson of all. Honey, there is a smell that comes off a person when they realize the walls are closing in. It is not sweat and it is not fear. It is the smell of burnt bridges. Brenda had spent 38 years thinking she could walk on water because she never looked down to see who was holding her up. But now she was looking down, and all she saw was the abyss. I spent the weekend in my room at Golden Ames playing solitaire and waiting. I knew what was happening outside. My phone was blowing up with updates from Frank. He told me that Brenda's lawyer had tried to call Nemesis Holdings 20 times on Friday afternoon. He told me that Nemesis Holdings, which was really just a voicemail box and a fax machine in a strip mall in Nevada, didn't answer. Silence is a powerful weapon. If you yell at someone, they can yell back. But if you are silent, they start to hear their own demons talking. By Monday morning, Brenda was desperate. I knew she was desperate because she showed up at the nursing home at 9 a.m. sharp. She wasn't wearing her usual designer suit. She was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt and no makeup. She looked 10 years older than she had last week. She didn't knock, she just burst in. Mom, she said, her voice was brittle. I need you to think. I need you to think very hard. I looked up from my oatmeal. Good morning, dear, I said. Did you bring the crossword? Stop with the crossword, she yelled. She kicked the door shut. It made a hollow thud. We are in trouble, Mom. Serious trouble. That company Nemesis Holdings, they aren't responding. They have frozen the sale of the house. And because the sale is frozen, I can't access any cash. That sounds like a pickle, I said. It is not a pickle. It is a disaster. She paced around the small room like a tiger in a zoo cage. Listen to me. Did Dad have a safe deposit box? Did he have gold coins buried in the yard? Did he have bonds? I need liquid assets, Mom. I need something I can sell today. I watched her. This was it. The mask was completely off. She wasn't even pretending to care about my care plan anymore. She was just looking for loot. I don't think so, dear, I said slowly. Robert didn't believe in gold. He said it was for pirates, she screamed. A short, sharp sound of pure frustration. She grabbed her hair with both hands and pulled. Think, she hissed. There has to be something. What about the jewelry, the other jewelry? Not the pearls I took, the rest of it. Where is Grandma's ruby ring? I felt a cold flash of anger. My mother's ring. She wanted to pawn my mother's ring to pay off her gambling husband's debt. I said, pausing for effect. I think I gave it to Cousin Sarah for her wedding. Remember, you did not. Brenda snapped. Sarah hates you. You are lying. You are hiding things. She started ripping through my drawers. She threw my underwear on the floor. She dumped my toiletry bag onto the bed. Toothpaste and denture cream rolled across the plastic mattress cover. Brenda, what are you doing? I cried out. I made my voice sound frightened. You are making a mess. I am looking for the money, she screamed. She was tearing the lining of my suitcase now. There has to be something. She didn't find the burner phone. I had taped it to the underside of the toilet tank in the bathroom that morning. A trick I learned from a drug dealer I helped prosecute in '89. She found nothing, just old lady clothes and a half-eaten box of crackers. She stood in the middle of the mess she had made. She was breathing hard. Her chest was heaving. You are useless, she whispered. She looked at me with pure venom. You have always been useless, just a burden. And now you are going to drag us all down with you. She turned to leave. Wait, Brenda, I said. She stopped. She didn't turn around. Are you still going to visit on Tuesday? I asked. For the bingo, she laughed. It was a dark, ugly sound. I am not coming back, Mom. I don't have time for bingo. I have to figure out how to keep a roof over my head because you failed to protect your assets. Don't expect to see me for a long time. She slammed the door. I waited 5 minutes. Then I got up and locked the door. I went to the bathroom and retrieved my phone. I called Frank. She is dry, I said. She tapped out. She searched my room for jewelry. I know, Frank said. His voice was heavy because she just pawned the pearls, Evelyn. I closed my eyes. The pearls Robert gave me. The ones I wore to my son's graduation. The ones I wanted to be buried in. Where, I asked. Downtown pawn on 4th Street. She got $500 for them. They are worth $5,000. Go get them, Frank, I said. Buy them back. Put them in the safe. Done, Frank said. And Evelyn, yes, it is happening. The repo truck just pulled up to her house. They are taking the BMW. I walked to the window. I looked out at the brick wall. I imagined Brenda pulling into her driveway in her other car, only to find the tow truck hooking up her husband's pride and joy. Good, I said. Let them walk. It builds character. But we weren't done yet. The car was just the appetizer. The main course was coming at noon. That was when the sheriff was scheduled to serve the eviction notice on 122 Skyline Drive. Brenda didn't know it yet, but she was already trespassing in her own home. The bank, which was me, now owned the deed, and the bank was not feeling charitable. Now, ladies, I want you to imagine the sound of a dream dying. It does not sound like a whimper. It sounds like a sheriff's deputy pounding on a solid oak door at noon on a Monday. I was sitting in my room with my headphones on, connected to the audiobug Frank had planted in Brenda's kitchen light fixture. I was eating a cup of applesauce, but it tasted like ash. I took no pleasure in this. You have to believe me. No mother wants to hear her child crying. But sometimes you have to break the bone to reset it properly. And Brenda's moral compass was broken in about 6 different places. The banging started at 12 o'clock sharp. I heard the dog start barking. I heard Todd yell something indistinguishable. Then I heard Brenda's heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Who is it? She yelled. We are not interested in solar panels. Open the door, Mrs. Hayes. A deep voice boomed. It was the sheriff. We have a court order. I heard the door open. I heard the rustle of paper. This is a notice to quit. The sheriff said. The bank has accelerated your mortgage and exercised their right to immediate possession due to default and breach of contract. You have 20 minutes to gather your essential personal items and vacate the premises. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the silence of a vacuum. This is a mistake. Brenda's voice was shaking. It was high and thin. We are renegotiating with the bank. My mother is wealthy. She is covering the arrears. Your mother is not on the deed, Mrs. Hayes, the sheriff said, and the new note holder Nemesis Holdings has declined any negotiation. They want the property vacant. Now! I heard a crash. Brenda must have dropped something, maybe a vase, maybe her dignity. You can't do this, she screamed. I have rights. I have a child in school. You can't just throw me on the street. I am sorry, ma'am, the sheriff sounded bored. He had done this 1,000 times. You have 19 minutes left. I suggest you start packing. I listened to the chaos. I listened to Todd weeping in the background, asking about his golf clubs. I listened to Brenda frantically calling her lawyer and getting voicemail. I listened to the sound of suitcases being dragged down the stairs. It was the sound of a life being dismantled. At 12:30, I heard the heavy front door slam shut. I heard the lock click. I took my headphones off. I sat in the silence of room 204. I looked at the peeling paint on the wall. I knew what was coming next. Brenda had no money. She had no car since the BMW was repossessed. She had no house. She had a husband who owed money to a man named the Vice. She had one card left to play. Me. My burner phone buzzed. It wasn't Frank. It was the front desk of Golden Ames. Mrs. Sullivan, the receptionist, said. Her voice sounded annoyed. Your daughter is here again. She says it is an emergency. She has a lot of luggage. Send her back, I said. Brenda didn't look like a master manipulator anymore. She looked like a refugee from a natural disaster. She was wearing sunglasses indoors, probably to hide the fact that she had been crying her eyes out. Todd was behind her carrying 4 Louis Vuitton suitcases and looking like he wanted to jump out a window, Mom, Brenda said. She took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were red and swollen. We are checking you out. I raised an eyebrow. I thought you said I needed professional care, dear. I thought I was a danger to myself. Plans have changed, Brenda said. Her voice was raspy. We are moving back into your house, all of us, today, but the lien, I said, the sale, we aren't selling it. Brenda snapped. We are living in it. We have to. There was a gas leak at our house, major repairs. We can't stay there for a while. A gas leak. She lied to my face even when she was standing in the ruins of her own life. She couldn't admit the truth. She couldn't say, Mom, I failed. Mom, I broke it. She had to lie. I looked at her. I looked at the desperation radiating off her like heat off a sidewalk. Okay, dear, I said, if you think it is best, she said. Now get your things. We called an Uber. An Uber, how the mighty had fallen. I packed my small bag. I retrieved my burner phone from the bathroom. As we walked out of Golden Ames, for the last time I looked at the sign on the wall. Golden Ames. Where dignity matters, I almost laughed. Dignity was about to matter a whole lot. The Uber ride was silent. We sat in the back of a Toyota Camry that smelled like pine air freshener. Brenda stared out the window. Todd stared at his phone. I stared at the back of the driver's head and planned my finale. We pulled up to my house. 847 Oakwood Drive. It looked beautiful in the afternoon sun. The roses were blooming. The windows were gleaming. Brenda got out. She walked up the driveway like she owned the place. She reached into her purse for her keys. She put the key in the lock. She turned it. It didn't move. She frowned. She jiggled it. She tried again. Mom, she said, did you change the locks? I stood on the walkway clutching my purse. I shook my head. No, dear. I haven't been here in a week. Brenda tried again. She was getting frantic. She was jamming the key in. It won't open, she yelled. She kicked the door. Todd, try your key. Todd fumbled with his keychain. He tried his key. It didn't turn either. What is going on? Brenda screamed. She spun around to face me. Did you give a key to the neighbor? Did the realtor change it? I don't know, Brenda, I said. I really don't know. Just then a black sedan pulled up to the curb. It was a sleek, expensive car. The kind of car a banker drives, or a lawyer, or an executioner. Two men got out. One was Frank, but Brenda didn't know him as Frank the PI. She knew him as Mr. Stone from the title company call. The other man was a process server holding a thick envelope. Brenda froze. She recognized the voice. Mrs. Hayes, Frank said. He walked up the driveway. He was wearing a suit that cost more than Todd's car. I believe we have some business to conclude. Who are you? Brenda whispered. Why are you at my mother's house? Frank smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf who had just cornered a rabbit. I am not at your mother's house, Mrs. Hayes, Frank said. I am at the property currently owned by Nemesis Holdings. We took possession of the title this morning when we bought out the foreclosure rights on this property too. What? Brenda backed up until she hit the door. That is impossible. This house isn't in foreclosure, no, Frank said, but the debt was cross-collateralized. You see, when you manage assets poorly, things have a way of tangling together. Frank looked at me, he winked. A tiny, almost invisible wink. Brenda looked from Frank to me. She looked confused. She looked terrified. Mom, she said, do something. Tell him this is your house. I stepped forward. I dropped my cane. It clattered on the pavement. I stood up straight. I rolled my shoulders back. I took a deep breath of the fresh air. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the woman who had thrown me away like garbage. Actually, Brenda, I said, and my voice wasn't shaking anymore. My voice was strong. My voice was the voice of the woman who had balanced the books for 40 years. Frank works for me. Brenda's jaw dropped. It literally dropped. She looked like she had been slapped. What? She whispered. I reached into my purse. I didn't pull out a tissue. I didn't pull out a hard candy. I pulled out the deed to 122 Skyline Drive, her house. I am Nemesis Holdings, Brenda, I said. I am the bank. I am the landlord. And honey, your rent is past due. You know, ladies, they say the truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. Brenda looked like she had been hit by a truck. She stood there on the driveway, blinking in the sunlight, while her brain tried to process what I had just said. Her mother, the woman she thought was forgetting how to use a toaster, was the CEO of the shell company, holding the deed to her life. You are lying, Brenda whispered. She let out a shaky laugh. You are confused, Mom. You are having an episode. Nemesis Holdings is a hedge fund. You are just... You. I didn't say a word. I just reached into my purse and pulled out my burner phone. I dialed a number on speaker. Frank's pocket buzzed. He pulled out his phone and answered it. Hello, Miss CEO. Frank said, smiling at Brenda. I hung up. Brenda looked from the phone to Frank to me. Her face crumbled. It wasn't sadness. It was the terrifying realization that she had been playing checkers against a grandmaster. How? She choked out. How did you know? I walked past her. I unlocked my front door with the key that had been in my pocket the whole time. The lock clicked open smoothly. Come inside, I said over my shoulder. Wipe your feet. This is a clean house. We sat in the living room. I sat in my velvet armchair. Frank stood by the fireplace like a bodyguard. Brenda and Todd sat on the edge of the sofa, like two teenagers waiting for the principal to expel them. I opened the green ledger on my lap. Let's review the books, I said. My voice was calm. Clinical. Item 1. I pointed to a line on the page. You forged my signature on a power of attorney document with the intent to defraud an estate. That is a felony, Brenda. 5 to 10 years in state prison. Brenda flinched. Todd started to sweat. Item 2, I continued. You attempted to sell this property, which is not yours to sell, to cover a gambling debt owed to a Mr. Nicky Santoro, also known as the Vice. Todd made a sound like a dying seal. How do you know about Nicky? He squeaked. I know everything, Todd, I said. I know you owe him $300,000. I know the interest is 20% a week. And I know he threatened to break your thumbs if you didn't pay by Friday. Brenda looked at her husband with horror. You told me it was an investment loss. She screamed. You told me it was crypto. It doesn't matter what he told you, Brenda. I interrupted because item 3 is about you. You haven't paid your mortgage in 6 months. You have maxed out 5 credit cards. And you stole my pearls and pawned them for $500. I pulled the pearls out of my pocket. I poured them into my hand. They shimmered in the light. Frank picked them up for me, I said. Brenda started to cry. It was the ugly crying again, the kind that comes when you have no moves left. Mom, please, she sobbed. I am sorry, I was desperate. We were drowning, Mom. We just needed a lifeline. No, I said sharply, you didn't need a lifeline. You needed a victim. You didn't come to me and ask for help. You came to me and told me to die. Remember that, Brenda. You told me to find somewhere else to die. The room went silent. The clock on the mantel ticked. So here is the situation. I closed the ledger. I own the debt on your house. I have a lien on your assets. And I have enough evidence to send both of you to prison for fraud and elder abuse. Brenda slid off the sofa onto her knees. She crawled toward me on the expensive Persian rug. Mom, please don't send us to jail, she begged. Think of the neighbors, think of the reputation. I will do anything. I will pay you back, every cent. I looked down at her, my daughter, the woman I had bathed and fed and loved. She looked so small. I am not going to send you to jail, Brenda, I said. She slumped with relief, thank God. Thank you, Mom, I knew you wouldn't. Let me finish. I cut her off. Prison is free room and board. And you don't deserve a free ride, I leaned forward. I am going to make you a deal. I am going to pay off Nicky the Vice today. I am going to clear Todd's debt so he doesn't end up in a hospital. Todd started crying too. Thank you, Margaret, thank you, and I continued, I am going to forgive the fraud, I won't call the police, but, and this is a very big but, you are going to sign over the deed to your house to me. You are going to give me the keys to the Mercedes if you ever get it back. You are going to declare bankruptcy. And you are going to get jobs. Jobs, Brenda whispered. Yes, jobs, I said. Real jobs, not influencing. Not consulting. You are going to work, Brenda. And you are going to pay me back, every single penny, plus interest. And until you do, I said, you are not my daughter. You are my debtor. Now, ladies, I know some of you are thinking that I let her off too easy. You are thinking she deserved the cell block. But let me tell you something. For a woman like Brenda, who defined her entire existence by her status and her address, poverty is a prison far worse than iron bars. Brenda looked at me with wide, terrified eyes. But where will we live? She asked. If you take the house, I smiled. It was a genuine smile this time. Well, I said, it just so happens I know of a vacancy. It is a lovely little room, very cozy. It has a twin bed and a nice view of a brick wall. Brenda gasped. No, you can't mean. Golden Ames isn't just for seniors, Brenda. I said. They have a wing for staff housing. I spoke to Ms. Trunch this morning. She is looking for a new dishwasher in the cafeteria. And Todd. I hear they need someone to mop the floors on the night shift. You want us to work at the nursing home? Brenda whispered. The horror in her voice was absolute. It includes room and board, I said. And think of the bingo on Tuesdays. It will be a great way for you to connect with the people you thought were useless. She stared at me. She looked for a crack in my armor. She looked for the mother who used to bake cookies and forgive everything. But that mother was gone. That mother had been evicted. Do we have a deal? I asked. Or should Frank call the district attorney? Brenda looked at Todd. Todd looked at his shoes. We have a deal, Brenda whispered. Good. I stood up. I walked to the door and held it open. Now get out of my house, I said. You start your shift at 6 a.m. Don't be late. Miss Trunch hates tardiness. They left. They dragged their Louis Vuitton suitcases down the driveway. They looked like refugees from a fallen kingdom. I watched them go. I didn't feel sad. I felt light. I felt like I had finally put down a heavy weight I had been carrying for 30 years. Frank walked up behind me. You are a hard woman, Evelyn, he said. I am a fair woman, Frank, I said. I gave them exactly what they wanted. I gave them a place to live and a clean slate. The rest is up to them. 6 months later, I sat in my garden drinking tea. The roses were in full bloom. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. I had filled it with new friends. I had started a book club. I had joined a travel group. I visited Golden Ames once a week, not to live, but to check on my investments. I saw Brenda there last Tuesday. She was wearing a hairnet and an apron. She was scrubbing a tray of lasagna pans. She looked tired. Her hands were red and chapped. She didn't have any makeup on. She saw me across the cafeteria. For a second, she looked like she wanted to hide. But then she straightened up. She nodded at me, just a small nod. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't love, but it was respect. She was learning the value of $1. She was learning that you can't build a life on lies. And she was learning that her mother wasn't just a stepping stone. I walked out to the parking lot. I got into my car. It wasn't a Mercedes. It was a sensible sedan paid for with cash. I drove away from the brick building with the peeling sign. I had my house. I had my fortune. But most importantly, I had my dignity. They tried to throw me away. They tried to break me. But they forgot one thing. Glass only breaks if you hit it. If you temper it in the fire, it becomes harder than stone. And honey, I have been through the fire. I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. The pawn had become the queen, and the game was finally over. Thanks for listening, ladies. Subscribe if you know a Brenda in your life. And remember, check your own books, because you never know who is trying to cook them.